The legend goes like this. Masayoshi Son wanted to fund the future ideas, so he created a $30 billion fund. That's right, whopping $30 billion. That's with B. But just before he met with potential investor, he filled with the slides and changed the amount to $100 billion from $30 billion. By hearing this, the investor laughed loud, but he didn't. And he quoted, "Life is too short to think small." Yeah, you heard that right. I'm talking about the biggest investment conglomerate in the investment world, that is SoftBank. Right, we are going to talk about SoftBank in this episode of Things You Didn't Know About Stuffs. The year is 1957, 11th August, and this was the year Masayoshi Son was born. He was born in Tosu, eastern part of the island of Kyushu, Japan. At the age of 16, Son moved from Japan to California and finished his high school in 3 weeks by taking the required exams at Sermonte High School. Son later attended University of California, Berkeley, where he majored in economics and studied computer science. Son was always passionate of starting his own venture. When Masayoshi Son arrived in the USA, his English was limited but he had big dreams. After reading about microchips, he felt computers were the future and created his own firm SoftBank in 1981. He began importing PC software from Japan, then ventured into publishing business with PC magazines. By 1990, SoftBank Corp. Japan became SoftBank Corp. And now brought services from US to Japan. Sun created yet another company, SoftBank Holdings Inc., to look for investment opportunities, and by 1994 he had eyes on large-scale acquisitions. SoftBank is a Japanese multinational conglomerate holding company headquartered in Minato, Tokyo. SoftBank owns stakes in many technology, energy, and financial companies. It also runs Vision Fund, the world's largest technology-focused venture capital fund with whopping $100 billion in capital. It operates in broadband, fixed line telecommunication, e-commerce, internet, technology service, financial, media, and marketing. SoftBank was ranked in the Forbes Global 2000 list as the 36th largest public company in the world and the second largest public trading company in Japan after Tokyo. He then acquired large company Ziff Davis, and Sun discovered none other than Yahoo and decided to invest in it and launch Yahoo Japan, which became a giant umbrella for other investment business. Having evolved into a holding company in 2000, SoftBank invested in another potential giant, Alibaba. Yep, Alibaba, China's largest e-commerce. The alliance would include business partnership, joint ventures, and investment. By the year, Sun was briefly the world's richest man in the year 2000, only to have 93% of SoftBank's wealth disappear after dot-com bubble burst, which left him about $8 billion. So he was still okay, but it was not enough. SoftBank then later aimed to become the largest telecom giant by investing in fixed line communication in 2004 and buying Vodafone KK in 2006. Such moves allowed them to be exclusive iPhone representative in Japan, which gave them a substantial presence and even more buying power. And then they continued to use that buying power, and in the year 2013, SoftBank purchased Sprint Nextel, one of US biggest phone carriers. Now, one of the biggest companies in the world, SoftBank, didn't stop spending spree. Under Sun's vision, yup, you heard that right, under his vision, SoftBank invested in computers and robotics. And it came up with a 300-year whopping plan. You heard that right, 300-year plan. And that's the attitude that set Sun apart. I mean, how do you even take that such a vision so seriously? I mean, nobody won't even last for 300 years. There are many companies which come and goes within 10 years, but his plan was for 300 years. Sun backed up his words with actions. That is when he created his famous $100 billion Vision Fund, and the Vision Fund was a reflection of SoftBank's attitude. Its investment is so aggressive, the minimum per round is $100 million, and SoftBank intentions were clear. But as per Japan Times, Sun said, "This won't be a typical fund. Most of our investment will range between 20 and 40%, making us the largest shareholder and board member in the position to discuss strategy with the founders, which meant total control." SoftBank wanted to have the most of the control to themselves so that they can do the business administrative strategies. But SMEF considered Sun's investment methods are too risky. The Vision Fund is $100 billion. Sun's plan to resupply the $100 billion every 2 or 3 years. Let's put into perspective. According to TJ National Venture Capitalist Association, The US entire venture capital industry was $75.3 billion in 2016. In here are some examples of SoftBank's crazy investment. $9.3 billion in Uber, $2.3 billion in GM Cruise, and $5.5 billion in Didi. In 2017, SoftBank purchased Boston Dynamics to further venture into robotics, an area Sun is sure will grow in the future. Sun has repeatedly said this and quoted this that I believe the next Big Bang is going to even be bigger, so be prepared for that. With so much and so far, it seems good and working as the ride is perfect. And then we get into his work, and he very invested in a company called WeWork. It was an all-out investment, only how SoftBank can do it. In November 2018, SoftBank invested $3 billion and another $2 billion in 2019, which skyrocketed Network's valuation. And then we get into WeWork. It was all about investment and only how SoftBank can do it. In November 2018, SoftBank invested $3 billion and another $2 billion in 2019, which skyrocketed WeWork's valuation from $20 billion to $47 billion. And that was a red flag wave all around, and they should have at least, but the world celebrated WeWork's valuation. And this wasn't the only investment SoftBank made on new WeWork. They had invested another $4.4 billion in 2017, and with the final cash injection, SoftBank was basically in control. But the hype was short-lived. From a failed IPO to chaotic management within WeWorld and current health crisis, WeWorld valuation plummeted. In these past 2 years, WeWorld has been a seesaw ride of promises, failures, mistakes, and a very peculiar CEO. And even though Sun still believes WeWork will eventually make money, he has admitted that the $9 billion bet was a mistake because the latest report after the plummet was $2.9 billion compared to previous year $47 billion. Sun was clear and he quoted, "They can say whatever they want, I just want to do it in my way." That set Sun apart. That has been Sun's answer when VC fund called his tactics too aggressive, looking to control all the companies under the Vision Fund. But the problem is just like other investment is its size. $1 billion fund is too much of a big capital, so bringing more capital doesn't make any sense. This quote is even been said by big investors like Warren Buffett. More is the fund, difficult is it to manage, and Sun's aim was big. So when he started the company, he had 2 part-time employees, which was a very minuscule company. But Sun had already built a 50-year plan for it and had told the lonely laborers that within 5 years, he would have a whopping $75 million in sales. But with such vision, have faced some grave adversity. SoftBank has shown no signs of slowing down. With colossal funding rounds, the company's rampant attitude has forced other VCs to have to up their game. In the startup world, it seems the SoftBank way is the only way. And when we look at Sun's life, we understand he always aimed to be the biggest name in the industry. SoftBank had some controversies when Saudi Arabia Kingdom was vital in creating a vision fund back in 2017 with initial funding of $45 billion. Yup, $45 billion. That is out of the $100 billion vision fund. Controversy was something like this. The kingdom was responsible for the disappearance of a Saudi Arabian journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, and this plummeted the share price of SoftBank. But it took SoftBank up to last minute to pull out of the conference, maintaining a low profile throughout the crisis. Masayoshi Son spoke to the press in November and quietly referred to the fund's integrity as there may be some impact and their dispute against the Arabian kingdom. But past months have shaken SoftBank, and add to the pandemic, the WeWork with fiasco, Uber and OneWeb not performing that well. But the first quarter of 2020, SoftBank reported $25 billion in loss, out of which $17 billion was due to Vision Fund. Helped SoftBank to recover some amount, sold ARM to Nvidia for whopping $40 billion. Meanwhile, the company announced buyback scheme to reduce debt. The company was crashing. So is this the end? No. Just months later, SoftBank clawed its way back. How? Well, some of its investment paid off. Take Uber. Although Uber rides didn't do that well to do them favor, but Uber Eats was particularly very popular during this pandemic, which increased the Uber stock by 11% in second quarter, and also helped to raise the valuation of other companies like Didi. And there are other investments such as pharma and insurance. Plus, the Federal Bank of Japan also contributed to buying back debt, which helped them a lot. As per New York Times, in the beginning of August, SoftBank made a profit of whopping $12 billion. SoftBank is the biggest company in investment world and is doing so they have lost billions. But Even one of the riding pays off, they are riding very high. So let me know what you think about SoftBank, and will they have this success next 30 years or next 300 years?